Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Donald Trump says Canada will face 35% tariff rate starting August 1st, while Brazil readies reciprocity law following Trump's trade threats. Anti-tariff protests witnessed in Sao Paulo. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio to meet with Chinese counterpart Wang on sidelines of ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur. Taiwan tariffs to top the agenda. And in Wimbledon women's singles, America's Amanda Anisimova and Polish star Iga Swiatek will face off in finals on Saturday. Men's semi-finals to kick off from today. Eyes on Djokovic versus Sinner and Alcaraz versus Fritz. US President Donald Trump on Thursday announced a 35% tariff on imports from Canada next month and planned to impose blanket tariffs of 15% or 20% on most other trade partners. In a letter released on his social media platform, Trump told Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney the new rate would go into effect on August 1st and would go up if Canada retaliated. The new tariff will apply to Canadian products entering the United States and comes as part of what Trump called a response to Canada's retaliation and ongoing trade barriers. In an official letter made public on Thursday evening, Trump outlined his reasons for the steep tariff hike and accused Canada of failing to cooperate on key issues, particularly the flow of fentanyl into the United States. President Trump claimed that Canada's failure to stop fentanyl from entering the U.S. contributed to the new tariff policy. In a direct warning to Ottawa, Trump said any Canadian response would be met with additional tariffs. Trump has already sent letters to 22 countries outlining new tariff rates, including a 50% tariff on imports from Brazil. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney in a social media post said that throughout the current trade negotiations with the United States, the Canadian government has steadfastly defended their workers and businesses. The Prime Minister said that Canada will continue to do so as it works towards the revised deadline of August 1st. He also further said that Canada has made vital progress to stop the scourge of fentanyl in North America and that Canada is committed to continuing to work with the United States to save lives and protect communities in both the countries. Canadian federal government, provinces and territories are making significant progress in building one Canadian economy. Carney said that the government is building Canada strong. He added that Canada is poised to build a series of major new projects in the national interest and they are strengthening trading partnerships throughout the world. Brazilian Vice President Geraldo Alckmin confirmed that the country's reciprocity law is ready for immediate implementation following US President Donald Trump's announcement of 50% tariffs on Brazilian goods. Speaking at a press conference, Alckmin said the law has already been approved by Brazil's National Congress and that the decree should be published today, tomorrow or in the coming days. Alckmin criticized former President Jair Bolsonaro's role in escalating trade disputes, suggesting his allies could continue to work against Brazilian interests even after leaving office. Meanwhile, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said he wanted to find a diplomatic solution to Trump's threat of 50% tariffs on Brazilian exports, but vowed to reciprocate like for like if they take effect on August 1st. Lula criticized Bolsonaro for perpetuating claims of legal persecution, stressing that the former president's son, Eduardo Bolsonaro, took leave from his role in Congress, at least in part to lead a campaign in his father's favor in US. Lula called the way his American counterpart announced the 50% tariffs on imports starting August 1st disrespectful.
He
could have called Brazil to tell about the measures he was going to take. He didn't even send a letter. We didn't receive a letter. He posted on his website a complete lack of respect, which is typical of his behavior towards everyone. And I'm not obligated to accept this disrespectful behavior between heads of state.
And Brazilian protesters expressed outrage in Sao Paulo during a demonstration that was initially aimed at supporting the government's economic policies but quickly shifted focus following Trump's new tariff announcement. And it won't be just Brazilians who will bear the brunt of tariff hike. Even Americans will not be spared. US consumers will face sharp price rise on food staples like coffee and orange juice if Trump slaps 50% tariffs on all imports from Brazil. Roughly a third of the coffee consumed in the United States comes from Brazil, while more than half of the orange juice sold in the US also comes from Brazil. The problem doesn't end here. US dependence on imported orange juice has grown in recent years too, driven by a steep decline in domestic production. Meanwhile, President Lula has said he would work to bring together exporters of orange juice, steel or the Brazilian Aerospace Corporation, Embraer, and negotiate. Brazil produces nearly half the world's Arabica coffee and is by far the world's largest orange juice producer, accounting for 80% of global exports.
I myself will seek new markets for Brazilian products. That's my role, including telling business people, let's open new markets together. Because it's not easy for him to just tax others. It will also have consequences in the United States, especially those with the largest export volumes, orange juice, steel, Embraer, which exports heavily to the United States, to talk to see what their situation is. We will try to conduct every possible negotiation process.
Moving further, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia for the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting. On the sidelines of the ASEAN meeting, Rubio will meet with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang on Friday. This will be the first in-person meeting between the two leaders. While speaking to reporters in Kuala Lumpur, Rubio said he would raise Chinese support for Russia in his meeting with Wang. And ahead of US-China talks on the ASEAN summit, the Asian markets, China and Hong Kong rallied to nine-month highs on Friday. The rally at the Asian markets were led by rare earth and tech gains. Shanghai Composite Index jumped 1.1%, the highest level since October last year. The blue chip CSI 300 index also added 1.1%. In Hong Kong, the benchmark Hang Seng Index was up 1.9%, while the Hang Seng China Enterprises Index rose 1.8%. And during ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio engaged in an informal chat with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. Rubio walked over to Lavrov before the start of the meeting for an informal talk where both the leaders shook hands. The interaction between the two diplomats followed their 50-minute bilateral meeting in Kuala Lumpur on Thursday. Rubio said Lavrov shared new ideas on resolving the conflict, which he promised to present to US President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, local reports say US President Donald Trump will make a major statement on Russia on Monday.
We shared some information and ideas that I intend to take back to the president. Hopefully it'll lead to something positive. I can't guarantee it. The president's been frustrated at the lack of progress. He's made that clear publicly. But, we'll see if that changes. And if we see opportunities to make progress on peace, we want to be involved in pursuing that.
Meanwhile, India's Union Minister of State for External Affairs, Pavitra Margarita, is also in Malaysia for the ASEAN-India Foreign Ministers meeting, on the sidelines of which she met Deputy PM and Foreign Minister of Cambodia. Both the leaders discussed multifaceted bilateral relations ranging from heritage conservation to development partnership. The minister also discussed about his recent visit to Phnom Penh, during which he had a number of productive engagements. He thanked Cambodia for its support towards India's fight against terrorism. Moving on, Israel is ready to negotiate a lasting deal with Hamas to end the Gaza conflict when a temporary halt to hostilities begin. Efforts to secure a 60-day halt in the 21-month war have dominated Netanyahu's talks with US President Donald Trump in Washington. Indirect negotiations have been taking place between the two sides in Qatar, and the militants have agreed to free 10 of the 20 hostages still alive in captivity since October 7, 2023, attack which sparked the conflict. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Thursday that the Islamist militants must first give up their weapons and their hold on the Palestinian territory. He warned that failure to reach a deal on Israel's terms would lead to further conflict. During a video message from Washington, he also said that the choice of which hostages will be released in a proposed 60-day ceasefire deal is not in their hands.
We are dealing with a ruthless terror organization. Obviously, we would like to rescue all of the hostages, and from our point of view, all of them are humanitarian. I want to rescue all of them in one go. We are dealing with 2 stages, but the choice is not always in our hands. We will do everything in order to maximize the number of those released in this round in the best way possible. Not everything is in our hands.
The U.S. State Department has announced a new awareness campaign warning Americans, particularly Iranian Americans, about the severe risk of traveling to Iran. U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce asked Americans, particularly those with Iranian heritage, not to travel to Iran. While addressing a press briefing on Thursday, Bruce emphasized that the Iranian regime does not recognize dual nationality and denies consular access to detained U.S. citizens. She said, while the bombing has stopped, that does not mean that it is safe to travel to Iran. It is not. She announced that the U.S. Department of State is launching a new website dedicated to warning Americans against traveling to Iran. The website is travel.state.gov. Now, a federal judge has again barred President Donald Trump's administration from enforcing his executive order limiting birthright citizenship across the country. The federal judge in New Hampshire has granted class action status to a lawsuit that aims to protect babies who would be denied birthright citizenship under the Trump administration's orders. This comes after the U.S. Supreme Court restricted the ability of judges to block his policies using nationwide injunctions. The judges said he would stay his ruling for 7 days to allow the Trump administration to appeal and would issue a written decision by the end of the day. Under the Supreme Court's decision, Trump's executive order had been set to take effect on July 27. The ruling marks the first major legal setback for Trump's January executive order, which sought to deny U.S. citizenship to children born to undocumented or temporary residents. Now, federal agents carried out immigration enforcement raids on state-licensed marijuana nurseries in coastal Southern California on Thursday, facing large crowds of angry protesters. Federal immigration raids on 2 glass house farms locations in Southern California triggered major protests as word and videos spread on social media. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents detained around 100 farm workers before confrontations with migrants' rights activists, during which tear gas was reportedly used. The raids occurred in Carpinteria and Camarillo, despite a June 14 order from President Trump to pause farm enforcement, which ICE later reversed. Similar raids in June had already disrupted farms, leaving crops unharvested and workers anxious. Hundreds of Venezuelans marched in Caracas on Thursday, urging the U.S. government to reunite children separated from their parents during deportations from the United States. The march was organized following a statement by Venezuela's Interior Justice and Peace Minister Diosdado Cabello, who said that women arriving in the country on a U.S. deportation flight had reported being separated from their children. Protesters also demanded the return of the 238 Venezuelan migrants held in a Salvadoran prison and the intervention of the United Nations to get their children back home. Further, in a landmark move, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron took a key step to underpin Europe's security by agreeing to tighten nuclear cooperation as the region frets over the US commitment to its defense and Russian ambitions. In targeting a reboot of defense ties with a focus on joint missile development and nuclear cooperation, while also firming up support for Ukraine in its war with Russia, Europe's 2 nuclear powers also hope to send a strong signal to Moscow. We are slipping into a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Central India braces for heavy rain as IMD issues alert. Texas authorities face mounting questions over response to flash flooding. The holy month of Savan begins. The spiritual journey of Kavar Yatra also begins from today.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. In a dramatic high seas rescue, the Indian Coast Guard saved 2 U.S. nationals stranded in a distressed yacht, U.S. flag sailing vessel Sea Angel, about 53 miles south of Nicobar Islands. On receipt of distress message by a U.S. consulate at Chennai, ICG ship Rajveer was deployed and responded to the distress situation. Navigating through rough sea conditions, the daring operation underscores the Coast Guard's unwavering commitment to maritime safety. And in Pakistan, armed men killed 9 bus passengers after kidnapping them in southwestern Balochistan province. The officials said on Friday that the passengers were kidnapped from multiple buses on Thursday evening. The bodies with bullet wounds were found in mountains overnight. No one has claimed the responsibility. In another news from Pakistan, torrential monsoon rains submerged major roads and low-lying neighborhoods in Pakistan's second-largest city, Lahore, disrupting traffic and forcing emergency evacuations across the metropolitan area. 4 people have died in the past 24 hours as the city received 150 millimeters of rainfall, the heaviest single-day downpour this monsoon season. At least 90 people have died in Pakistan from flood and rain-related incidents since June 26. The casualties resulted from drowning, landslides and collapsing structures during monsoon downpours. The authority issued fresh alerts for flash flooding. Widespread urban flooding left several key commercial districts, including Gulberg and Liberty Market, under waist-deep water. And the Japanese capital, Tokyo, was hit by a torrential downpour on Thursday evening, with authorities warning of heavy rain, floods and lightning in some areas. The Japan Met Agency said atmospheric conditions were unstable due to a front and warned of the risk of landslides, floods and overflowing rivers, local media reported. The agency also forecast up to 150 millimeters of rain in the 24 hours through 900 GMT on Friday in the Kanto region, which includes Tokyo. Moving on, central India braces for heavy rain as Met Department has issued a fresh warning across multiple subdivisions of the country. IMD forecasts Madhya Pradesh and the eastern flank of Rajasthan are under alert for extremely heavy rainfall likely to persist until July 14. Meanwhile, several areas in the mountainous states of Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh are set to receive intense showers accompanied by thunderstorms and lightning. In contrast, southern Indian states except Tamil Nadu are bracing for strong surface winds, though significant rainfall is not expected. A major breaking story is unfolding in Uttarakhand, where heavy rains have crippled daily life, causing blocked roads, overflowing rivers and landslides in hilly regions. The IMD has warned of continued downpours, while the centre has released 455.60 crore in relief funds. Authorities have urged people to exercise caution and avoid travel. And moving to the national capital, Delhi, there's a good news on the air quality front. The city has recorded an air quality index of 59, its lowest in recent days, placing it in satisfactory category. Remarkably, Delhi's AQI has remained in this range for a record 15 consecutive days. And thousands of first responders continued searching through thick mud-covered debris in Texas Hill Country on Thursday, holding out hope of finding survivors 6 days after flash floods devastated the region and left at least 120 dead. In this tragedy, questions are being raised on the delayed response of the Texas authorities that could have saved lives. More in this report.
In a catastrophe beyond imagination, more than 120 lives were lost, including dozens of children. Over 170 are still missing, all swept away in the dead of the night. But what still lingers is the exasperation of the families and some questions on whether victims had any warning at all. With US President Donald Trump preparing to visit the disaster zone on Friday with First Lady Melania Trump, new questions have emerged about critical funding that was slashed from emergency preparedness programs. Critics say Trump-era cuts to FEMA and early alert systems left counties like Kerr dangerously exposed, and it was a disaster waiting to happen. Kerr County was the tragedy's epicenter. Kerrville police deflected a question about police radios being unable to communicate with county and emergency officials, hampering rescue efforts as the flood raged.
So I suspect the folks did their job, but I don't know under what circumstances or conditions. A lot of the weather forecast offices now are not operating at full complement of staff, which means that you're really putting an extra burden on these folks.
Local news networks claim that at 4:22 a.m. on July 4th, Kerr County Sheriff's Office got a message from a firefighter upstream to alert residents of the coming flood. The first alert did not reach Kerr County's Code Red system for a full 90 minutes. The delay has raised multiple questions, many which the officials will find hard to answer. Bureau Report, DD India.
Sports updates now. In a gruesome incident, Indian tennis player Radhika Yadav was allegedly shot dead by her father at their residence in the suburb of New Delhi. The police claim that the father, Deepak Yadav, allegedly killed his daughter in Gurugram because he was upset with her. Radhika managed a tennis academy and people made remarks at him saying he was living on her earnings. The police have arrested the man who fired 5 bullets and 3 hit her. The police said they received a call that a woman was brought dead to the hospital. The cops then went to her house. During the preliminary investigation, the father confessed to killing her. Cricket now. England batter Joe Root needs 1 run to complete his century against India on the second day of their third test at Lord's on Friday. This would be his 37th test 100 and a record 8th century at Lord's. The host will resume the day on 251 runs for the loss of 4 wickets as Root's unbeaten 99 checked the visitors' progress on the opening day of the match. England captain Ben Stokes was 39 not out. They have added 79 runs for the 5th wicket. Root came to bat when England had slumped to 44 runs for the loss of 2 wickets after paceman Nitish Kumar Reddy struck twice in his first over to remove openers Ben Duckett and Zach Crawley. Root shared a grinding partnership of 109 with Oli Pope to bail the team out of trouble. In Wimbledon, after 2 very contrasting semi-finals, American Amanda Anisimova and Poland's Iga Swiatek will face each other in the Wimbledon finals on Saturday. Anisimova came through a long and grueling match against world number 1 and fellow big hitter Aryna Sabalenka, triumphing 6-4, 4-6, 6-4 after a tense and often unpredictable deciding set. For Swiatek, it was a different story. She needed just an hour and 12 minutes, less than half the time of the first semi-final, to cruise to a 6-2, 6-0 victory over Belinda Bencic. Swiatek against Anisimova surely has the advantage of having played in 5 previous Grand Slam finals, winning them all. Well, men's semi-finals will begin today, where Serbian tennis icon Novak Djokovic will meet yet another 23-year-old number 1 ranked Jannik Sinner for a berth in the finals, while Taylor Fritz and Carlos Alcaraz will face off in the second semi-finals. Novak Djokovic took 1 step closer to record-leveling 8th Wimbledon win as he battled past Flavio Cabole. Also, Taylor Fritz and Spanish player Carlos Alcaraz will face off in the second semis. Both of them have only played twice, and one of those matches was at the semi-exhibition Lever Cup. 2-time defending champion Alcaraz comes into this semi-final on a 23-match win streak. Not to be outdone, Fritz is 13-1 on the grass this season. And the holy month of Savan begins from Friday, marking the start of a spiritually significant period in Hindu calendar. Savan is dedicated to Lord Shiva, is marked by devotion, fasting and prayers, especially on Mondays, called Savan Sumar. Across northern and central India, devotees visit temples early, offering milk, water, bay leaves and carrying decorated cowmats filled with holy Ganga water to Shiva shrines. On the first day of the Savan, devotees flock to Kashi Vishwanath temple early in the morning to offer prayers to Lord Shiva with chants of Har Har Mahadev. They performed rituals seeking blessings for health, prosperity and wish fulfillment. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.